You may have heard about some attempts to ensure that liquidity is made available, particularly to businesses, through some 600 million Ghana cedi soft loan program. The MBSSI is championing that. They are here with us this morning to give us an update on where they are. And then we've also received lots of requests from persons who have funds locked up in a number of institutions who want an update on when those payments will also be made, so that as we're trying to alleviate the difficulties that are associated with COVID-19, they are not left with the hard end of the stick. So welcome. We will be going through these very briefly. We expect to take just a little over an hour to finish this morning's briefing. It will be a quick one. I want to start by inviting Dr. Patrick Kumar-Boaje and the Ghana Health Service to give us the quick update and the nuancing, first of case count, case management, and then some analysis on the positivity data as they are processing that data now. Doc.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, and good morning all. I'll be brief as we normally go through our case count and the nuances as the Minister has mentioned. As of the 4th of May this year, the total case count, as you have seen on the website, is 3,091 cases. Of this figure, that's an increase of about 372 cases since the last update. And this, as usual, covers all cases diagnosed since the first case was recorded. Out of this number, a slight increase of those recovered has moved to about 303 cases and 18 deaths. There has been no COVID-19 related deaths since the last update, which was 2 days ago. This number leaves us with a total number of 2,770 active cases. When we say active cases, what does it mean? It means that the number of people that we are actually currently following up, that is exclude those who are recovered and those who have died, and that gives us about 2,770. There are still a number of people who may have left the country, so there are lots to follow up, and people who are also not being being reached. In terms of the cases recorded since the last update, 248 had come from Greater Accra, and that came from 20 districts instead of the 24 districts that was recorded in the last update. We have mainly from Accra Metro, 48, Korle Klote, 41, Ablekuma South, Ashaman, 17. Ashaman has come down now, and this comes, as I said, 20 out of the 24 districts that reported cases in the last update. The rest of the country contributed about 124 new cases, and I'll share the details in the course of this presentation. Out of the total cases, the 3,091 cases identified, 944 has come from the routine surveillance. That is those presenting with symptoms at the various health facilities. At the last update, that number was 919. 2,032 have been identified through the enhanced contact tracing, and as usual, the quarantine cases still adds up about 115. For the types of presentation and case management, we have about 2,765, accounting for about 90% of those cases presented with asymptomatic, or they had some mild symptoms, and most of them are being managed at our at-home treatment centers and mainly at the isolation centers. $618 of this number had come from the routine surveillance, and as much as 2,032 has come from the enhanced contact tracing. The number of people who are moderately ill still remains at 5, and that has not increased since the last update. When it comes to the positivity rate, We have a positivity rate. 33,069 persons have been tested from the routine surveillance, and we have 944, giving it a positivity rate of 2.85%. The last presentation about 2.9%. 102,833 has come from the enhanced contact tracing, and out of these 2,032, as mentioned earlier, had been confirmed, leaving our positivity rate of about 1.98%. Now let's get to the regional breakdown. Greater Accra, as mentioned, had an increase of 248, and I mentioned the district that were created the main issues. Eastern region had one extra case, so they have a 95 now, as at 4th May, and that came from one of our hospitals in the Eastern region from routine surveillance. The Central region has had 2 new cases. 7 were from Infansiman district, and 2 from Swedru and Cape Coast, and 1 from Moree. The Western region has had 10 more cases. The last presentation was 21, there are 31, and the cases are reported from our Hunter West, cases from St. Martin de Porres Hospital, Ekwe, among others, and they are all mainly routine surveillance. Volta region did not add any more, it still remained 30 from the last update. Ashanti region added about 41 cases, new cases, some from enhanced and some from routine surveillance. Kwabri East showed the largest number, 20, with Achuma Kwame adding 5 to the rest. Upper East has 7 new cases as of the last briefing. The case from Bogatanga municipality. Northern region has not had any increases, remain 13. Northeast still 2 cases. OT has still 23 cases, no increase as of the last count. Western North has had some circumscribed outbreak, and so they moved from 54 to 56, having an increase of about 52 in Western North. This comes from a circumscribed area of a group of workers where we've had this number coming from. So as mentioned again, there's been no deaths since the last report. Of the 18, there's about 76% of them are males and 23% females. 11 out of these deaths were above 60 years, and 4 cases were within ages of 40 and 59, and 2 cases aged between 25 and 39. We have also recorded deaths in the age of 15 to 25 bracket, and 1 less than 15 years. A significant proportion of these deaths among persons they all come with comorbidity, and that will mean either they have an existing condition, either a heart condition, diabetes, etc., and that has been about 84% of all those people. Some of the conditions, as I mentioned, hypertension ranked the highest among them. We also had a case of liver disease, 1 had asthma, stroke, and other things. I also wish to add that, as the Honorable Minister said, we have been looking at, we wish we were able to get cases every day and be able to report on the positivity. But we also have the opportunity to go back and take samples and to see where, the day that the samples were taken, how many were positive, which actually gives us something similar to if we had done it in real time. If you look at that data, we peaked around the 27th of April this year. And since then, the numbers have continued to come down till the last presented, that was yesterday. So that is showing that of the positivity, since the peaking on the 27th of April, we have consistently recorded a decline until today. And we hope that will continue to be the case so that we'll be able to nip it, these cases, bring it under control, not actually control it. As I raised in my last press briefing, COVID is still not equivalent to death as people have perceived it. We want to encourage everybody to continue applying the protocols that we have done. We are also coming up with protocols that will guide people as to, if you are a hairdresser, if you are a barber, what exactly should you do to protect yourself? We know that it's not as simple, so we have protocols which will be out, as we mentioned last time, and share with the various groups. We have already started engaging them to share with them. So thank you very much.
Doc, I'm asking the team at the back to load this graph of the positive cases per date on which the sample was picked, so that you can just speak to that as well. It bears repeating that we are not out of the woods. It's not to say that the matter has been resolved or that there is any waving of a white flag that, there's victory all over. No. What you are saying is that because of the clearing of a certain backlog, which backlog we are told has been cleared as at now, if you go back, if you work the data backwards, and you match the date on which the samples were picked with how many of those samples were positive on that date, and you plot that as a graph, whether it's a line graph or as bar graphs, you see a certain picture. And that picture is what you are speaking to. So I'm going to ask the team to upload that so that you can just speak to that briefly. Colleagues, let me mention once again that beyond this presentation, there are about 2 more. Today's brief is quite a quick one, or it's a pretty quick one. We'll spend some time talking about liquidity, starting from the 600 million Ghana cedis to be used as soft loans for businesses or some category of businesses. And then we have an update on the official receiver of the non-banking financial institutions on how far they have come and what remains outstanding. So we'll box those two together for you shortly. Do we have the presentation ready? While I wait for that presentation, let me just quickly tell you about what. Okay, so Doc, if you can just briefly speak to this, and then we'll do. Dr. Bedisa Akode, briefly speak to this.
Thank you very much, Honorable. Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. The graph that we see here is what we have plotted based on the data that we started picking for testing in the laboratory. The management of every outbreak, we have the mandate to plot what we call epidemic curve. Plotting epidemic curve, the best variable should have been the date sample was taken, and you use the various daily case incidents to plot for cases confirmed COVID. This data, I will explain later why it's not really available. The proxy next to it is the date the patient was seen at the health facility. Again, there is a challenge and a bit of gap, and for that reason, it's not complete. The next closest is the date sample was taken, and we have data for all the total number of cases confirmed positive, and also for the negative, and that is what we have plotted here for the positive cases. the model that Ghana took, it is difficult to get the date the person reported to facility and also the date that sample was taken, because we are not waiting for people to show signs and symptoms. For the few cases that we had, our approach is to immediately identify all the contacts of that individual, and instead of waiting for the contacts to develop symptoms and signs, immediately as we identify individual as a contact, we take samples from all the contacts and send to the lab to test to enable us pick all the infected cases as early as possible, put them in isolation to make sure our communities are as safe as possible. Based on this, if we are to wait for people to develop symptoms, probably it may be too late, they would have spread too far, and the burden of positive cases that we have would have been much outrageous and higher than this that you see here. So if I say that we have a gap with regards to the number of cases that have signs and symptoms, that is a rationale. And those also that reported to the facility a particular day, most of the people did not report to the facility. When you identify you as a contact, we come to the homes, place of work, and any reasonable place that you meet this person, take the sample there, and then send them for testing. So most of them initially never reported to any health facility before we identify them as being positive. So the best proxy for us as a country, which is very credit-worthy, and a lot of countries are indeed calling to emulate how we are going as a small country with such an achievement. This is our story to say as Ghana. We are testing people as early as possible, not waiting for them to develop signs and symptoms. And as soon as we identify them as contacts, we take samples, send to the lab, and then know the status. So that is the status that we have. Clearly, you can see that the first sample taken on the 10th of March, the results came on the 12th. That's not shown here because you are not showing when you had the results. You are showing the first two cases, sample taken 10th of March, and they became positive. There was a build-up till getting to the end of April, and then we have been coming down gradually. That is what we meant being picked. This is not saying that Ghana is off the hook yet. The odds are not over, and the woes are not off. To sustain this and further come down, we need to adhere to all the various preventive etiquettes that have been spelled out quite a number of times here. So, Mr. Honorable Minister, this is the situation that we have for the number of cases built with respect to the confirmed cases that we have in Ghana. Thank you very much.
So, Dr. Bedu-Sarkodie, paying attention to your graph, it suffices to say that the date on which you got the single largest number of positive cases will be about 25th of April.
That's correct.
That will be the date on which you got the single largest number
of positive cases.
Since then, there has not been a single day on which you have had such a large number.
No.
But this was also during the period of clearing the backlog, where you had so many samples. And so you are not expecting that on a single day you'll be recording such large numbers anymore. And
that's an assumption.
yeah, okay. But again, you are saying that if that assumption will come to pass, then it will be based on how we observe the preventive etiquette.
That's correct.
That you are talking about.
So
okay.
that's now being epidemic comes in wave, and then the wave staying down means that we have to adhere to preventive etiquette.
Okay. Okay, colleagues, I'm sure we all understand what he meant and how he came by, or how the Ghana Health Service came by that position or that assumption, and what they are asking us to do in that regard. So Ghana Health Service, thank you. I want to move to the second brief very quickly, and then we'll deal with the third and final part of it. President Akufo-Addo and his cabinet will, over the next 3 days, commence a process of examining data so far gathered on the impact of COVID-19 across the governance sectors in Ghana. It will be recalled that from the onset of the pandemic, the minister responsible for finance, the Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta, briefed the nation through Parliament on the projected economic impact of the pandemic and measures that government was projecting to take at the time to mitigate the impact. Since then, under the leadership of the President, the government of Ghana has rolled out a number of measures in responding first to the health crisis specifically, and second, to the socio-economic challenges that come with managing it. These measures, as you recall, include free water for 3 months, free electricity for 3 months for lifeline consumers, and 50% discount for non-lifeline consumers, among others. There's also mention of a soft loan program, which we'll speak about shortly, and then the facilitation of other loan facilities, I think as was mentioned yesterday by the President at Jubilee House, through some of the commercial banks. Now, about 8 weeks into the pandemic here in Ghana, and as we get closer to mid-year, the government of Ghana has actual data on the real impact of COVID-19 across various sectors: education, health, the economy, trade, the legal front, several other areas. The President has instructed all ministers to report on the impact across their sectors and proffer recommendations for recovery. At a cabinet retreat that is starting later today and will go on for the next 3 days, the government of Ghana will examine the observed impact, the recommendations that are being made, the implications, and will commence preparations for laying same before Parliament during the mid-year review. That's just a quick update, and when we are done with it, as we did the last time, depending on the outcome, we'll do well to share it with you. Now, as I mentioned, there was also an indication that out of the 1.25 billion Ghana cedis being made available from the coronavirus alleviation package, about 600 million of that is to go towards soft loans for some category of businesses. I want to invite Mrs. Kosi Yankee Aye. Did I get it right? Yes. Who is the Executive Director of the National Board for Small-Scale Industries that is leading that project. So 3 quick questions. What have we done so far? What more do we need to do? And when can we start accessing that money? Please join us.
Good morning, everyone. Honorable Minister, thanks for inviting us to this forum to share with the media and the people of Ghana about what has been done with regards to the 600 million cedis stimulus package that the President announced. We are all aware about the negative impact of the COVID-19 on Ghanaians, and also, most importantly, on the micro, small, and medium enterprises in Ghana. This makes up about 70% of our economy, made up of the micro, small, and medium enterprises, and also the formal and informal sector. So it was in the wisdom of the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, to announce the 600 million cedi stimulus package, which was to provide an emergency relief to the MSMEs across the nation. Over the past few weeks, the National Board for Small-Scale Industries, in consultation with many of the industry leaders, the ministries, some government officials have met. As you are aware, there needs to be engagement with the right stakeholders, the financial institutions, to align with the direction of the President as well as the good people of Ghana. So in the past few weeks, we have led a few engagements to come up with a product. And those products are aligned with what the people, the micro, small, and medium enterprises need to be able to go through this very tough time. This has also been supported by the Ministry of Finance and his team, as well as the Board of National Board for Small-Scale Industries, ensuring that at the end of the day, when this program is rolled out, everything goes along very efficiently and is transparent for us all to be able to access. With that, we've also come up and worked very closely with the various stakeholders to come up with the eligibility criteria and really tighten it in such a way that it allows for people to have the option and be able to apply for the facility. Exclusively, we've also been able to communicate to everyone, especially the associations, trade groups, and the financial institutions, so that they align, so that when the program is rolled out, we'll be able to support and assist. In order to make this more efficient and transparent, the team, as well as the board, decided to work on a technology portal where applications can be processed and where applications would go to. We are also considering, and with engagements that we've had in the past weeks, to align very closely with those who might not have access to technology in some of the districts across the country, so that we do not exclude anybody from accessing and to apply for this facility. So in the past few weeks, we've been working on this portal as well to ensure that it is the right one for our board to approve, as well as to make it more efficient. Currently, we are stress testing the portal to ensure that on the day when it is launched, when there's a rush or when there are a lot of people, it does not disappoint any of us. And so currently, in the past few weeks, as I've mentioned, we've been working on coming up with the right product to support the micro, small, and medium enterprises, not forgetting the informal, but also considering the formal as well. We've been working on the portal where the applications will come through to ensure that there's accessibility for the nation, not selected people, and it would also be transparent and efficient for us to be able to get our funding. And we believe that in a few weeks, once the stress test is done, we will continue in the coming weeks to engage with various stakeholders so that they can start educating the population, and we'll start the communication as well so that more people know about it and can apply for it, to avoid future challenges where people are not able to hear much about what we have to offer that the President had announced as part of the 600 million cedi stimulus. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Kosi Yankee Aye, for that update. I have a quick update from the official receiver of the non-banking financial institutions, Eric Nananipa, and I want to quickly share it with you before we take questions and provide answers as best as we can. Out of a total claims worth approximately 6.4 billion that was received at the close of the extended deadline for the submission of claims for these organizations: 347 microfinance companies, 39 microcredit companies, 23 savings and loans and finance house companies. Legitimate claims admitted for processing and payment after validation was in the region of 5.66 billion Ghana cedis. The approximate 740 million cedis difference between the total claims received and the value of the legitimate claims admitted for processing and payment was due largely to two main reasons. One, invalid claims which were rejected, and two, set-offs and cross-lending. That is, some depositors who had either taken loans from some of these same entities or had in their custody placements from some of these resolved companies. So when you net that off, in addition to those that were invalid, you will get a difference of 740 million. So what they have validated to pay is 5.66 billion Ghana cedis. Now, based on those validations, the receiver, an official liquidator, has commenced work on some 5.32 billion, leaving an amount of 340 million that is going through the very final processes of second level checks. Payments made to date. Depositor payments are made in two forms, that is in cash and by way of zero coupon rated bonds. To date, approximately 2.11 billion has been paid in cash, while about 2.95 billion has been paid in bonds, bringing total payment to 5.06 billion. Now, based on total cash payments to be made by the end of the depositor payment exercise, it is expected that a population of individual depositors numbering about 297,000 whose claims have been validated and accepted in the resolution of the aforementioned groups of companies And ultimately, not less than 290,000, that's about 98% in number of individual claims, will be fully paid in cash. The remaining 2% of individual depositor claims will be paid by a combination of cash and bonds. So here are the next steps on the payments. They are first of all concluding the depositor payment process, and the key next steps to be undertaken are as follows. They want to conclude the final second level validation of that 340 million and make payments accordingly. They expect that by the end of May, they should be done with that one. There are some of the organizations whose books and records still have challenges, and they are processing those for some further investigations. And then finally, they will issue a report to the Bank of Ghana on the depositor payment scheme. That's an update from the official receiver and liquidator. So for those outstanding ones in the category that has been validated, the information is that by the end of May, they should be done with it. You see the meme that goes around that by June, dear. So this one appears that by June, those ones will be done. Okay, so we're going to take questions and provide answers as best as we can on the various briefs that we've done this morning. I just want to, again, contextualize the bar graphs just as we start the questions. In some jurisdictions, they are doing just in fact, in many jurisdictions, they are doing just the general surveillance. So for them, they are picking numbers of positivity per day, or a count of positivity per day that show up in the hospitals. And so they are able to quickly plot that curve or that graph. And everybody's expectation or hope is that the number that you get, or the number of positives you get on a single day, which is an indication of the kind of challenge that you're having, will go down at a point in time based on the measures you are introducing. Ghana decided to go a different route by adding something else to the general surveillance, the enhanced surveillance, going out there to fetch a lot of samples and come and test them. So initially what they were doing was that they were, anytime they find positives, they would update on the platform, as has been done even this morning. But you recall they kept mentioning that they have a backlog, which thankfully they have cleared now. Between Noguchi and KCCI, they have cleared the backlog, and from today onwards, as they explained to us, like they did on Tuesday, we should now be seeing just the numbers as they come in per day, because they don't have a backlog. Okay. Now, in clearing the backlog, the Ghana Health Service has gone back to match the samples with the date on which the sample was taken. And they explained that that is the closest indication they will come to mirror a situation as though these persons were reporting on a daily basis on such days to have their samples taken, so that they can also plot what they call their epidemic graph. I'm sure we all understand. And that is a graph that they have plotted. And as it indicates, the date on which they had the single largest number of positives, which is what some interpret to mean the peak, is what you see there on the 25th. Since then, they have not had a single day on which they have had such large numbers. And because they don't have a backlog to clear, they don't expect to have such large numbers on a single day anymore if we are all complying with the preventive etiquette as has been outlined. And so their expectation is that if we are all complying, and even if they will record some positives, you will not have a single day on which you have such large numbers. And therefore, you will not expect to go higher than what happened on the 25th. And that is what they are interpreting and analyzing, that if this is the curve you are talking about, then they think they have gone past the peak and are seeking to help or to encourage all of us to ensure that we don't go higher. Admittedly, you'll notice that there are times when it seems you have a peak and you are coming down, but then you end up having another higher number. But we can understand that this was a backlog. So moving forward, as you are now getting into real time, you don't even expect to see this kind of thing. That's what you are telling us. And you are asking us to comply so that this your assumption will hold. Okay, I think I understand you now. Colleagues, I'm sure we're all on the same page. Time for questions. Can I get some help with the microphone, please? It does not mean we're out of the woods. It doesn't mean it is over. It doesn't mean that the risk is gone. It's just the analysis of this data and the interpretation they are giving to it. Others may have some other opinions, but at least you can understand how they have arrived at that point and why they're asking us to comply. So if you have questions, the first three. Yes, sir. 1, 2, Madam, 3. And then I'll come to you later in the second batch. We can't hear you. You have to speak up a bit more. Is the microphone on? Yes, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Yes. My question has to do with the fact that based on what...
Please hold on for me. I'm not sure the console is picking your question. Try again.
All right. So my question has to do with the fact that... Hello? All right, so I'd like to first appreciate the explanation given by Dr. Bedisa Akodia on the graph and where we are right now as a country. So Ghana peaked as of April 27th of this year, per this data we have seen today. There was still lots of movement across the country. So what I'm trying to understand is, because we had a huge backlog, even as at the time that we peaked, was there a possible factor that the people, because from last Tuesday, what we heard was that only 450 of those who are tested positive were were in isolation. Meaning, where are the rest, which are the majority out of the cases we had?
Only 450 out of the positives were in
isolation.
Were in health facilities or in isolation in general?
In a restricted isolation.
Let's just all be on the same page as you're asking your question. Isolation does not mean one facility.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So I just want us to be quite clear. You are saying that somebody says only 450 out of the numbers that had tested positive were in isolation in general or were in medical facilities?
Were being confined in medical facilities and being isolated. The rest looks like we're in self-isolation.
Okay, which is a form of isolation.
Correct.
Very well, go ahead.
But that only determines self-discipline to...
Absolutely, absolutely.
So my question is, with those people, which are the higher numbers, who were allowed to be self-isolated, what was the criteria for allowing them to go self-isolate? Also, some of these people were taxi drivers, some of these people were food vendors. What measures were taken to allow these people to be sure that although there is that stigmatization, government will still intercede and help you, so make sure that you don't go back cooking food or selling food, or you don't go back picking your taxi and picking up.
Okay, so you have two parts to that question. What is the criteria for determining who can self-isolate?
Correct.
And maybe I should add to it, how do you ensure that the self-isolation works? And then the second question is that, is there any economic mitigating measure when you isolate people or self-isolate?
Correct.
Those are the two questions.
Yes.
Okay.
My last one has to do with, I understand that we were waiting as a Tuesday for samples from KCCR. I'd like to ask if Noguchi in waiting, because till today we had 239 cases recorded from Accra. So were there a mixture of some samples from Accra which ended up also in Kumasi? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think the date is 25th, not 27th. 25th. 25th of what? April, correct? Yeah, 25th of April. Yes, sir.
My name is Joseph Akabile. I work with JoyNews.
Joseph, one moment, please. So do Accra samples go to Kumasi for testing? How do you reconcile that with the fact that if Noguchi had cleared their backlog, some of the new numbers you are having appears to be an increase in Accra positivity numbers? That's your question. Very good question. Yes, sir.
My question is that in terms of the analysis that we did, I just want to find out whether we spread the data to have a sense of whether we can look at it on a daily basis, the number of cases. If we did, how many did we find and how many are we?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand your question. Please, let's try again.
I'm saying that the data that we analyzed, did we look at it in terms of trying to get a sense of if we are looking at it on a daily basis? Whether how many cases were recorded on a daily basis, whether we spread this data?
Yes, that's the graph here.
Yes, and it is the numbers per day, the number of cases per day.
Yes, that's the graph here. On the x-axis, you see the date on which the sample was taken, and on the y-axis, you see the number of cases.
Yes, so I'm asking how many cases did we record on the peak? He didn't mention a specific figure.
Okay.
How many we are doing currently?
Okay, so now I get your question. So, for example, on the 25th, how many cases, if we say the 25th was the date on which they got the single largest number of positive cases, how many samples?
How many cases were recorded out of the samples taken for that day? Yes.
Yes, but this is the number there.
Okay. So then the other issue relates to the measures that we are undertaking to bring them down. You spoke about the restrictions that were imposed, the social distancing and others. For a lot of people who follow this particular issue closely, their main issue is that the case count is still going up, and so the consensus is that in terms of the health service analysis of the extent to which people are abiding by the restrictions, what do we think we can do more to ensure that we hasten the process of?
So the question is, what can we do more
beyond the measures that we are already implementing?
Is it do more to enforce, or are there some other measures?
One, to enforce, and the second one relates to whether there are some other measures that we intend to bring on board.
Okay, that's a policy question, so I'll take that one myself. Go ahead.
The other one relates to the recovery rates. I just want to find out whether the health service, looking at the global figures, it appears it's not moving very fast in terms of the recovery rate if you compare it to the rate of infection. What we have learned from our 313 cases that have recovered, what have we learned from it, and what do we intend to ensure that we send that number a bit higher in terms of the rate of recovery?
Okay, anything to do to improve recovery rates?
Yes, and finally has to do with the bit about the clearing of the backlog. I want to just know how prompt our testing is currently. And I'm asking because we still get calls from people, some of whom say that they have been tested already, their samples have been taken, and sometimes they are called to come back for the samples to be taken again. I just want to understand what accounts for that and also how prompt our testing is currently. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Abuaje, you may want to take that, or if you want to defer that to Noguchi when they join us next time as well, I would indulge you that. It's in your hands to decide. Do I have a third one? Yes, madam.
Yes. My name is Sarah Paku from TV3. My first question has to do with the daily updating of the website with the figures. Initially, we have this graph coming on. We have the breakdown of the cases, those who were in serious conditions. But for some time now, it has been a concern for some experts who need to do analysis of the figures that the data provided by the Ghana Health Service is not too detailed or accurate for them to be able to. So I want to find out what has been the challenge from the start when they were giving some data that you can analyze, but now it looks like just the regional breakdown, the number of confirmed cases. We don't know patients who have asymptomatic. We don't have patients, the age bracket, male, female. We need to have all those on the website. I don't know if there is a challenge the Ghana Health Service would like to share with us. Secondly, we also want to find out, yesterday we interacted with the Ghana Medical Association, and they raised some concerns on the fact that there is need for tests of healthcare workers to be prioritized. So it happens that about 10 or 15 persons in one department get into contact with an infected person. The result is taken to the lab, and it takes so many days, and then that unit has to be closed down. Is it possible? If it is not possible, why? Maybe the Ghana Health Service can tell us something. And we're looking at plans to strategize the way suspects or patients are carried from their various homes. It has been identified that that is the main cause of the stigmatization that we are trying to fight as a country. Is there a way that it can be re-strategized, that we don't go in the usual fleet of cars and Rambo styles to get them? This is what I want the Ghana Health Service to tell us.
Okay, so we'll address these, and then we will take another batch. I want to deal with just the policy question that was raised after my colleagues have responded to the other issues. Doc, please come up.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. If I missed any question, probably just have to prompt me. Where are the people we have identified? The numbers in isolation keep changing. We have currently about 450 plus in isolation, outside their homes. And here we have some in Accra, the Pentecost Convention Center. Kumasi has an isolation center in Ejusre, in Kumasi and Achumama Breja. Among other regions have isolation centers either as hotels that the region and the district have rented to put people in the eastern region and western north. So that's what comes to the number. Now, we also have people who are classified, tried and say we can be managed at home with mild condition. This is somebody who has a mild condition or no symptoms, somebody who has no comorbidity. That means that you don't have anything like diabetes, hypertension that can complicate your matter. And thirdly, you have a home that we are satisfied that it can self-isolate without harming anybody. And finally, you are somebody we feel you are disciplined enough to follow the criteria. We call or visit you routinely by the district to make sure you're okay, because we are still watching to make sure that if your condition changes, we have to move you to the facility. We have more than 37 isolated treatment centers. Those who are sick are either in UGMS, Gan East, Rage, Tema, parts of teaching hospitals. Almost all our regional hospitals have cases. My last count, we have about 350, but that number changes. Some are discharged, some are admitted, and they are there. And the numbers that are home are quite significant in all regions, and the regions know exactly where they are. We've also had some who may have come in and have left the country, and so we have lost a follow-up. But looking at the nature, if you look at my presentation earlier on, looking at the nature of the disease, we can assume that they have recovered, looking at the trajectory that the disease goes through. So that's what we have. And that has been one of the key success for us, because you can see that a significant number of the people who have tested positive are actually isolated in one way or the other, either in hospital, at home, or in an isolation center. So that's where we look at. So I've given a criteria for can you do anything to improve the recovery rate? Yes. The recovery rates, we have a very high bar in Ghana that you have to test 2 negative conservatively before we can declare you as recovered. Other countries, 1 negative, you are gone. And that creates some backlog, especially when we had a little challenge with our lab. We are looking at reviewing the policy, because we're taking time to look at what is the chance that someone who tested negative will test positive at the second time. The figures are not significant, and so we may decide to revise the policy so that when you test negative, we can declare you as recovered. And when you do that, you see the number significantly jump up, because a lot of people are still waiting for their results to have that. On daily basis, they wanted to know how the samples are taken. I mean, every sample that is taken, you have a case-based form with date, the person's name, etc. So even though, because of the backlog, if we bunch up about a week samples to be done, you can always go back and look at the case-based form and see that these samples were taken on this particular date. And of those number, how many of them were positive? And so in retrospect, you can go back and do that, even though you may not have to do that because of the challenge we have. We will not have done it routinely, like on daily basis, but you can go back and do that. And that's exactly what we have done to see that. You see some of where some of the spikes are include the dates that we do the quarantine and the samples were taken, you can see that the positives are increased. So all those spikes, there are some explanatory notes to them. They also want to know how prompt is the results
Conveyed.
is conveyed.
Yeah.
Yes.
There are people who still say I've tested.
Yes.
A week afterwards.
Yes. Like I mentioned last time, I think we tend to, because of the initial surge, the focus was more on positives. If you have not been reached, it is very likely you are negative. But as for the positive, the search for you is quite distant. We are trying to recover, we're writing letters and reports to people whose results were missed.
Prioritizing the test of health workers.
Good. I think that is something that is clearly done. And if GMA has issues, we'll continue looking at it and do it, because we do them very, very, very rapidly, because apart from the fact that we are protecting them, you have to protect other staff and patients. And so that is always given top priority. As soon as we find any infringement, they are quickly isolated and then tests are done. So look at that.
There are those who are worried that the aggressive nature which we are picking out the positive cases adds to the stigma.
Good, yes.
Are you considering changing that?
Good. You see, you are called. The protocol that you are informed that this is your status, they've come to visit you based on your, you may not be able to self-isolate. You are given a place and they come very quietly to pick you. Those you see in the Rambo style approach is those who are evading the isolation. Those who are either switching off their phones or they are running away and they are not allowing them to join. Some of them are picked in the evening quietly, but it is when people are evading that we need to look at other means of trying to, in collaboration with the community, see how they can be picked. But if everybody cooperated as we do, I don't think we will have such a challenge.
Final question, do you have any challenge with providing some more nuanced data on the website?
Good, that's what I was going to come to. I think I've looked at other sites. You see, this is clearly a dashboard. If you are a researcher and you want more information, there's a lot of information we can put there. If you're a researcher and you want to do analysis, you know how to acquire data. We will share. But if you feel that everything must be put on a website, there are some websites that are only 5 blocks on it. Okay, even the WHO site, I don't get everything. And so if you're a researcher and you want more information, our doors are open. If you come, we will give it to you. We're working with the Ghana Academy of Arts and Science. We're giving them all the data they need. Your universities have come, they give them all the data they need to do the analysis. So if you want more information, please, it is good that, as is done in all researches, you approach the source and get the appropriate information that's with you. Because sometimes what you see in the website may not tell the full story. So you need to really come to us if you want to get some good data to have this thing sorted. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll respond to the question of any more measures, but may I also make a request on behalf of my media colleagues? Yes, we've seen the bar graphs, but if you can publish the table that has the specific numbers per day in it, which led to this, it will also help us, get something. I'm sure that's fine, colleagues. Okay. All right. Now, on the issue of measures, what are we doing to enforce those or the current measures, and are there any other measures? So first of all, there are 3 layers of protection currently. As I've mentioned, 1, the borders have been closed. The Immigration Service has put over 700 extra men at the borders, including some of the illegal entry points, to ensure that that is enforced. The imposition of restrictions by law is currently active. The Ghana Police Service has been prosecuting, and people are being fined and are being given other sorts of punishment when convicted for breach of that. So enforcement is going on. I think a few days ago we heard of what happened in Ekropon and the fines that have even come out of that one. The third layer of protection, which is what we have to do for ourselves, the state can do some for you, but you have to do some yourself, is the personal preventive etiquette, including the wearing of masks. You'll notice that now in the central business districts, for example, police and city guards are ensuring that if you do not have a mask, you don't even get access into some of those deeper parts. I'm sure you've reported on some of them on your networks. Some of those are enforcement mechanisms. It is also coupled with some attempt to provide some masks for free. Today, I think the Ghanaian Times also on its front page highlights one such story in the Greater Accra region where masks are being provided for free. I'm just coming back from my constituency where we are providing about 10,000 masks for free, being locally produced there. So it is a twin approach of helping to produce some and make it available for free, and also ensuring that there's enforcement on public transport and in the public areas. Just on Tuesday, we talked about the fact that we're encouraging all of you, including private sector, to introduce a no mask, no entry policy. So it's a mix of these things that should help us boost the levels of compliance. I'm going to take the very final batch of questions and then we'll wrap up. Yes, sir. That's 1, 2. I have some questions on the platform. Would that be it? Okay, so let me take the questions and then the two of you can come forward.
So this is a question from...
I think the microphone is off. Yeah.
Hello. This is a question from Class FM.
Okay.
Will the government of Ghana follow the likes of other African countries to take delivery of COVID-19 organics, a supposed produced syrup developed by some scientists in Madagascar? As Class FM. This one from Kingdom FM says, the Ministry of Health says its investigations reveals hoarding and the illegal sale of PPEs by some persons. So who are those engaging in such illegality, and what does the government intend doing to ensure that PPEs are shared accordingly without being hoarded? There's one more question from Star FM, which says that in the Western region, we have received reports from residents and seen videos of security personnel allegedly beating citizens who are refusing to wear nose masks. Has this come to the attention of government? Has there been any directive to MMDAs in that regard? And what will government do about that? Thank you.
Thank you. The two others. Kojo, I saw your hand up, and then I saw Martinka. Let's take it quickly and wrap up.
All right, my name is Yapre Kwabwe TV. I want to speak in the local dialect.
Please do.
Basically, I say it's a economy.
Maybe our country so all the brofone started. Basically, a new economy
last week, economy are very vibrant, is very strong. Now, we find out say, in you might be brain no and ecoform. Ocoform how busan go for. We bring out fee. And we say, your man could papa and mom. In a private sector, employ more of Grofon, we bring us to your Munkofudi, Mufia, it's then so pan, at a private sector, and say, Mamma, Humano, 80 million Kakra. Actually, so we said, besides, breakdown of number of debt, and now was a young counter mine or platforms of Latin Sanka, one of my women, Sam Mofra, Sam Roa, Sam Cochrane, San Mania, intimacy who said, waiting their Mayana, and also with mission crying said, no, at the arena, and yet, but there's a deeper one, it's in your breakdowns now, with my bioma.
Okay. Okay. Kojo, where are you? Yeah, let's take yours.
Good morning. 3 questions. 1, 2 to the Ghana Health Service, and then the third one will be for you, and then maybe the last one will be for the small-scale businesses. So now that we are told that we've gone past our peak, are we able to tell at this stage of our response what our basic reproductive number is? And then number 2, with the new data, we have
basic
reproductive number is. That's the number of average persons of persons infected with the virus.
I'm not sure that's what it is.
No, basic reproductive number, the average number of people infected with the virus.
No, I don't think so. I think that is about how many people will get it from one person.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So number 2. Number two, with the data we have now, when are we starting the contact tracing of these new positive cases?
As in the new positive cases that were announced?
Yes, and given that some samples were taken days or even weeks before the announcement.
Are you talking about the entire backlog or the one that was announced?
The backlog.
The entire backlog?
Yes.
That's an ongoing exercise. It's been ongoing.
So the number of positive cases from that backlog, have we started contact tracing from?
Okay, yeah, but that's an ongoing something that has been, yeah, it starts immediately.
We want to know. Number three, we recently launched the COVID-19 tracker app. Have we tested the app? Are we using it to do contact tracing as we speak now? And then to the NS, the National Small Scale Businesses.
National Board for Small Scale Industries.
Please, how many people are we projecting will come up for this 600 million cedis cushion from government? How many businesses are we projecting?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. I think that'll be it for our questions here. So Ghana Health Service, please stand by to deal with the question of the Madagascar claimed cure and whether or not you have come across it. What is Ghana's intent on the Madagascar claimed cure? The hoarding and illegal sale of some of the PPEs that you have distributed. On the matter of reports that in some areas security officials are beating citizens into compliance, we have said right from the beginning that we do not support any enforcement approach that leads to the infringement of rights of people. And that is why right from the beginning we mentioned that we encourage what we call democratic policing. You've seen lots of videos of it where the police officers, even when they engage with somebody and the person is being difficult or is offering other excuses, they take time to still try to educate. And we continue to ask them so to do. But we will not countenance any enforcement measures that abuse the rights of citizens. And we continue to ask the senior security officials to take the necessary notice of some of these claims and act accordingly. At Nka FM, yesika sem ene adwuma sem ekwan be ne be fa so epegem eye afanu edikan no se usua efa the friend of pandemic sa abesen ko abrebia no ewo afanamie no ba ko ne se yare nankasa crisis ewo ho yare nankasa ho asem ene ahokyere de yare nankasa ba ewo ho ansana ninsunsanso eya etaye economic crisis tubon say yare na ye konintin yesi obi antena fie sika nkede ye ne mafoforo no ye de kon yare no nti ebe wie no nanka yesi kasam ne adwumasam humpuntuo economic growth and development no eso hwan kakra ekwan ya fa so san di pejam no eye afenu ba ko ne say ye san pesika di wura economy ni mu ene ye friend stimulus package ebi ne dia no pay di hu nkoma NBSSI de be 600 million Ghana cedis through the coronavirus alleviation package no ebe wura economy minimum a omo aye adwuma hodo a oba pani Yankee ene ebe di hu nkomo no ebi be 3 billion bosia na enrance ne na nso mampani e kan ho asem se ye bo modern akekere be 3 billion be through the banks so e de epia wohwe Bank of Ghana ne commercial banks no so a omo atete rates so se dia enka obi beji sika enka fe se ne yete no yetete so na nka amano ayewa no wa no obi ohwe sika enso ensa akabe nti a combination of these measures and a boa masika echo back into the economy na ma pick up na na say adwuma 77 no assign ama ne homene so there's a request that we provide some data on the death statistics. I think that is skipped us, and probably if we can do that by Tuesday when we meet here again, that would be good for us. I want to invite my colleagues to deal with the rest. Ms. Yankee, please just help us on the quick question. How many businesses do you expect to benefit from this 600 million package? And then I'll deal with the rest.
Thank you very much. There were two questions that came up with regards to how we are going to support the businesses. As we all sit here, our families Personally, our siblings, our parents have all lost some of them might have lost their jobs or businesses or have reduced staff. So it has negatively impacted all of us. And we are working hard as government agencies to support them. Those who are coming up with new innovation, working with them with the Ghana Standards Authority, Food and Drugs Authority, to quickly get the standards ready so they can continue with the work that they are doing. Also looking at the statistics of the micro, small, and medium enterprises of this nation. There are 3 categories we're looking at. The micro makes up about 80% of the population in terms of the sector. For the small, you have about 15% of that. And then the medium enterprises are about 1% of the sector. In view of that, we've looked at that and analyzed that about 200,000 businesses will benefit, considering that the micro businesses make up a huge chunk of the population. So we've divided it up in a way that is just representative of the entire sector. Look out for it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. The Madagascar one, I believe that a quantity might be made available to the country, and I'm sure in collaboration with FDA, they have to do some assessment, and then we'll take it from there. And so I will not be able to say whether to be used or not, but I think there's been an offer that we can take a look at it and so work at it. And PPE hoarding. Well, I heard about the hoarding, maybe in quotes. I think the whole issue was the fact that it may not be reaching the lowest level as quickly as it should. And so we have put in system to ensure that it's part of our last mile delivery so that the things from the regional medical stores are quickly sent to the facilities where they are. If people are selling them, that's a criminal matter. And I think the way it should be, criminal matters are handled will be done in the same way. What is our reproduction rates? Yes, I mean, those are run by modeling, and some of the models we've had gives us a range of about 1.9 to 2.2. Some are giving 2.6. These are all numbers that we use for planning purposes, and they keep changing based on your situation at the time you do your assessment. So that's where we have. But looking at that number, we're still much, much lower than the regular average that we're supposed to have. So thank you very much.
Contact tracing is it's an ongoing matter.
Yeah, contact tracing is an ongoing matter. Maybe let me just have to explain. As soon as you test positive, the team will come and do what we call a listing of your contacts. So you list all contacts and where they are, and when you met them, etc., to see them, isolate those who needs to be seen. And then with their telephone numbers and addresses, the teams go there. And that is what the contact tracers do. So as soon as you test positive, so even if in a week or two we only have one case, contact tracing will go on until it stops. So thank you very much.
So 2 quick things. Ghana Health Service, again, on behalf of my colleagues, please do well to publish the table that leads to this graph, maybe within the next 2-3 hours, so that, you know, as the media education and conversation goes on, it can be contextualized. And colleagues, I pray you to contextualize their analysis properly. Not that they say we have hit the peak, so everybody should, you know, no. There is a reason for which they are putting it that way. That because of the backlog they were clearing, if you match the date of the taking of the sample and the positive numbers that accrue to that date, and you plot it, this is what you get. So if we are talking about this curve, because remember, we've said there are different curves. There are people who are looking at hospitalization curve. There are people who are looking at death curve. People who are looking at the active cases curve, in which case is 3,000 minus 300 and, yeah, that is the total cases minus death minus recovery. That is an active case curve. So there are different curves. If you are looking at this curve, which is what they are talking about, that is the positivity curve, which is the closest they can come to days when people, may I say, were tested, and assuming it was a same-day result, this is the closest they can come to. And this is the analysis they are doing for. So I pray you to contextualize it well so that we deal with it. We have also received a lot of reports that our sign language team doesn't wear masks. You are informing us that it's because you use your face for some of the expressions. That's why you don't wear the mask. Is that correct? That's right. That's correct. So for those who are asking that question, that is it. God willing, when we are back by Tuesday, we'll give you some further updates. Thank you.